Imagine you're asleep. The gentle rocking of the ship lulls you into a dream. Families are tucked in their cabins. Children sleep in their parents' arms. Somewhere above, a deck creaks quietly under the weight of people, luggage, and hope. The night is calm. The sea, dark and endless, whispers against the hull. Then, without warning, a deafening crash shatters the silence. The ship jerks violently, tossing you from your bed. Flames erupt somewhere nearby, roaring like a beast that cannot be tamed. Smoke and heat crawl into every corridor. The acrid smell of burning fuel stings your eyes, fills your lungs, and sets your heart racing. Screams pierce the night, echoing over the splintering metal. People run blindly, clutching children, holding onto whatever they can, only to find the fire chasing them, relentless and unstoppable. Outside, the calm sea has vanished. Black water reflects the orange blaze, and the smell of gasoline burns your throat. People jump overboard, hoping the water will save them, but the flames chase even the waves. Some scream, some sink silently, swallowed by darkness and fire. There is no crew to guide you, no instructions, only panic, chaos, and the unbearable realization that there is no safe place left on this ship. Time stretches, minutes feel like hours, the night is endless. Somewhere deep inside, you understand the truth. This is no ordinary accident. This is something far worse. Something that will take everyone you know, everyone on board, and leave almost nothing behind. By morning, almost everyone on this ship would be gone, and no one would be held truly accountable. The Philippines' floating lifeline. Imagine thousands of islands scattered across a vast ocean where land and sea are inseparable from daily life. In the Philippines, ferries aren't luxury, they're critical lifelines connecting families, workers, students, and goods across over 7,000 islands, often in regions where planes are too expensive or unavailable. For millions of Filipinos, hopping on a ferry is as routine as boarding a bus in a big city, especially during holiday seasons and festive times like Christmas, when people travel home to reunite with loved ones. In this archipelagic nation, the sea is a highway, and ferries are its busiest vehicles, carrying not just passengers, but hopes, traditions, and livelihoods across azure waters stretching from sunrise to sunset. On the eve of December 20th, 1987, this was especially true. It was the height of the Christmas rush, a time when families flood transport hubs with luggage, children, and dreams of being together for the holidays. Ferry terminals buzzed with activity. Decks were stacked with sacks of rice, bundles of goods, and people sleeping shoulder to shoulder under the open sky because there simply wasn't space inside. Overcrowding was common. It wasn't seen as shocking, but almost expected. A silent agreement between weary travelers and operators to squeeze just one more person aboard. This blend of urgency, tradition, and minimal regulation was the backdrop for what was about to unfold that night. Many Filipinos depended on these ferries because alternatives were few and far between. While air travel was too costly for most, and land routes impossible between islands, ferries were affordable and accessible, even if that meant safety standards were often stretched or completely ignored. Governments and operators sometimes bent the rules, convinced that a full ship meant more income, but it also meant more danger. Corruption and lax enforcement allowed overloaded vessels to sail routinely, especially during peak travel times. What none of them knew was that this ship was already breaking the rules before it even left the dock. A disaster waiting to sail. MV Doña Paz didn't start its life as the massive passenger ferry that would one day be remembered for the deadliest peacetime maritime disaster in history. It was built in Japan in 1963 under the name Himeyuri Maru, designed to carry about 608 passengers in local Japanese waters. That was its original identity, a modest ferry serving everyday routes, nothing extraordinary, nothing ominous. In 1975, the ship changed hands, sold to the Philippine company Sulpicio Lines, and rebranded as Don Sulpicio. It was later refurbished, expanded, and makeshift bedding on every deck. These weren't just extra bodies, they were ghost passengers, people who weren't even supposed to exist on paper. Ticketing corruption was rampant. Many passengers bought tickets after boarding, paid cash quietly, or traveled with children who weren't counted at all. The ship's official records became meaningless, a facade that hid a vastly overcrowded vessel. Excess people, lax enforcement, and incomplete manifests meant the real number aboard could have been more than double what the paperwork claimed. There were no thorough safety briefings, no checks on life jackets, and questions about functioning radios. What looked orderly on paper was chaos in reality, a ticking time bomb in maritime form. And Doña Paz wasn't alone that night. MT Vector and the floating bomb. The other vessel involved that night wasn't a passenger liner or a cargo ship full of families. It was MT Vector, a humble oil tanker laden with a danger no passenger ever imagined. Vector was built to carry petroleum products such as gasoline, kerosene, and diesel, a purpose that made it useful to industry but inherently volatile. On December 19, 1987, it set out from Limay, Bataan, bound for Masbate, its tanks filled with 8,800 barrels of fuel under a charter agreement with Caltex Philippines, meaning its entire cargo was highly flammable and primed to turn disaster into inferno if anything went wrong. To imagine what that cargo meant, think of every barrel not as cargo but as stored fire waiting for a spark. Gasoline is lighter than water, spreads fast, and once ignited it burns even faster. On most nights that would be a manageable risk for a small tanker, but on this night the ship was chugging through the busy Tablas Strait in the dark, while another vessel, crammed with passengers, steamed toward it, unaware of its deadly secret. When steel met steel at around 10:30 p.m, that fuel didn't just spill, it erupted. The collision instantly ruptured Vector's tanks, and that fire jumped into the water and toward the ferry, turning the sea itself into a burning trap. Reports from inquiries later revealed even more worrying details about Vector's condition. There were questions about its maintenance, with some accounts saying the crew struggled with steering problems and that the tanker's license had in fact expired, placing its seaworthiness in legal and practical doubt. Some crew members later said they were asleep at the time of impact, implying a lack of experienced watchkeeping on board when minutes mattered most. The very fuel Vector carried, essential to modern life, became an agent of annihilation when released at sea. And in the darkness of that December night, with gasoline burning across the waves and leaking flames swallowing everything in its path, one truth became horrifyingly clear. When these two ships met, the ocean itself caught fire. The night of December 20, 1987. The night of December 20, 1987 began like so many others in the Philippines during the Christmas season, with hope, nostalgia, and the hum of everyday life on the water. The MV Doña Paz had set out before dawn from Tacloban City on Leyte Island, bound for Manila, with a scheduled stop at Catbalogan in Samar, filled with families eager to celebrate the holidays together, students heading home, and workers returning to the capital. Many were already sleeping on deck or in narrow passageways, curled under blankets beside sacks of goods, lulled by the gentle motion of the sea as night settled over the Tablas Strait, one of the busiest waterways in the archipelago. There was a kind of quiet rhythm to the voyage that evening, almost ordinary in its stillness. The sky was clear, the stars faintly visible over the dark water. Some passengers whispered lullabies to their children, others chatted softly about plans for Christmas, while a few dozed in doorways and on wooden benches, unaware of the danger ahead. Down below, the hum of engines and distant laughter from those awake created a strange calm atop the sea, a calm that was about to be shattered. On the bridge, monitoring was sparse. Its massive cargo holds were designed to protect the ore from the harsh elements of the Great Lakes, and its hull was reinforced to withstand the punishing conditions often encountered in late autumn storms. Despite its size, the Fitzgerald was known for its maneuverability and efficiency, making it a workhorse of the shipping industry for nearly 2 decades. Throughout its years of service, the Edmund Fitzgerald had a reputation as a sturdy and reliable vessel. Its voyages were often long and challenging, traversing the cold, deep waters of Lake Superior, known for sudden weather changes and violent storms. The ship had survived numerous gales, and its crews trusted in its engineering to keep them safe. Despite occasional minor mishaps typical of freighters of its size, there were no major incidents that foreshadowed the catastrophic events to come. Its track record was a testament to the skill of its crews and the reliability of its construction. Lake Superior itself was a character in the story of Fitzgerald, as unpredictable as it was vast. November, in particular, brought treacherous conditions, sudden storms, freezing temperatures, and waves that could rise unexpectedly to heights capable of overwhelming even the largest freighters. Sailors of the Great Lakes were always aware that one miscalculation or one unlucky wave could mean disaster, but the Fitzgerald had weathered many such challenges before. On November 10, 1975, however, this reputation would be put to the ultimate test. On that fateful day, the ship set out on a routine voyage, carrying its full load of iron ore from Superior, Wisconsin, bound for Detroit, never to reach its destination. Edmund Fitzgerald's story is one of human ingenuity meeting nature's power, a giant vessel navigating a giant lake with skill and experience. Yet, even the strongest ships can face forces beyond calculation, and the events of November 10th would mark a turning point, transforming the Fitzgerald from a symbol of industrial might into one of the most enduring maritime mysteries of the Great Lakes. The final voyage. On the morning of November 9, 1975, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald set out from the port of Superior, Wisconsin, carrying a full load of iron ore destined for the steel mills of Detroit. The route across Lake Superior was well known to its crew, a path they had navigated countless times before. The voyage itself was routine, passing the rugged shoreline of Michigan's Upper Peninsula and heading toward the Sioux Locks at Sault Ste. Marie. Despite being late autumn, the Fitzgerald's crew was confident in their experience and the ship's capabilities. Weather reports on that day had indicated the presence of a developing gale over the western Lake Superior region. While not a hurricane or an unprecedented storm, the forecasts warned of strong winds exceeding 50 knots and waves rising over 25 feet. Mariners were familiar with these conditions, and the Fitzgerald was built to handle rough waters. Nonetheless, the storm would prove to be more challenging than anticipated. Other vessels in the area, such as the Arthur M. Anderson, reported heavy swells and driving snow, yet remained operational, highlighting the unusual and selective nature of the disaster that awaited the Fitzgerald. Throughout the morning and into the afternoon, the Fitzgerald maintained routine communications with the Sioux Locks and nearby ships. Radio contact was normal, with the crew reporting course and cargo updates. The standard protocol called for regular position updates, and the vessel adhered to these practices. However, after its last known message around 7:10 p.m., Fitzgerald fell silent. No distress call was ever sent, leaving authorities and fellow mariners in the dark about the vessel's condition. This absence of communication is one of the most perplexing elements of the tragedy. As the storm intensified, Arthur M. Anderson, traveling nearby, reported seeing Fitzgerald struggle against the rising waves. By this point, the wind had grown stronger and snow reduced visibility, but the Fitzgerald had vanished from sight. Mariners later recounted that conditions were severe but not extreme compared to other storms that the Great Lakes often produced. The ship's sudden disappearance in the face of a manageable gale created immediate concern, marking the beginning of one of the most mysterious shipwrecks in maritime history. Chronologically, the final hours of the Fitzgerald remain speculative but chillingly plausible. The ship was likely overwhelmed by waves crashing over its deck, possibly combined with water entering the cargo holds. Structural stresses, combined with the weight of the iron ore, may have caused the vessel to lose buoyancy rapidly. By the time the storm reached its peak in the evening, the Fitzgerald had disappeared beneath the icy waters. The absence of survivors and the lack of a distress call meant that the exact sequence of events would remain unknown, leaving investigators and historians to piece together the tragedy from the limited evidence available. Nearby ships survived the storm, navigating the same waves that claimed the Fitzgerald. This contrast underscores the uniqueness of its sinking and adds to the enduring mystery. Why did a ship renowned for its sturdiness fail where others succeeded? Was it a combination of factors, or was there a single critical event that caused the vessel to founder? The enigmatic nature of the final voyage has captivated researchers, storytellers, and the public for decades, cementing the Edmund Fitzgerald as a symbol of the unpredictable power of the Great Lakes. By the time the storm hit its full force, the Fitzgerald had vanished. The massive freighter that had traversed the lakes with confidence for nearly 2 decades now lay beneath hundreds of feet of water, carrying its 29 crew members into history as one of the most puzzling maritime losses of the 20th century. The final voyage of the Edmund Fitzgerald is a story of skill, preparation, and the unforgiving reality of nature, a narrative that continues to challenge our understanding of how even the most capable vessels can be overwhelmed. What went wrong? The first theory investigators examined after the disappearance of the Edmund Fitzgerald focused on flooding and the ship's hatch covers. Iron ore freighters like the Fitzgerald were designed to carry massive quantities of dense cargo in large holds. These holds were covered by heavy steel hatch covers intended to keep water out even in rough seas. If the hatch covers failed, however, waves could pour directly into the cargo holds, rapidly compromising the vessel's stability. Investigators found that the Fitzgerald was riding low in the water that day, a condition known as low freeboard, making it especially vulnerable to waves washing over the deck. Water entering the holds would add immense weight to the ship's already heavy iron ore cargo, causing the vessel to lose buoyancy quickly. Evidence suggested that some hatch covers may have been improperly secured or worn, a maintenance issue that could allow even moderate waves to flood the holds. In combination with the gale conditions of Lake Superior, this made the Fitzgerald highly susceptible to sudden sinking. The U.S. Coast Guard's report on the sinking offers detailed findings and diagrams illustrating how water ingress may have occurred. But the real mystery was not just the water. Fitzgerald's structural integrity may also have played a crucial role in its fate. Over years of service, even the sturdiest vessels develop stresses in their hulls. Metal fatigue, microscopic cracks, or minor damage from previous voyages could compromise the hull under extreme conditions. Some experts suggest that the Fitzgerald may have struck a shoal near Caribou Island, a possibility supported by sonar mapping and analysis of the wreck's final resting place. Striking a shallow underwater obstruction could have breached the hull, allowing water to flood the cargo holds faster than anticipated. Naval architects and Coast Guard analysts have debated this theory extensively, examining both the ship's blueprints and the recovered debris. Even minor structural weaknesses could turn waves that other ships survived into a deadly threat for the Fitzgerald. Environmental factors on Lake Superior that day also compounded the danger. The region is notorious for November gales, sudden and fierce storms that whip up the largest of the Great Lakes with little warning. Winds from the southwest collided with the lake's long fetch, producing waves that could easily exceed 25 feet. Currents in the western part of Lake Superior added unpredictable motion, further destabilizing a vessel already burdened with heavy cargo and potential structural weaknesses. Even though the storm was not an unprecedented event by Great Lakes standards, the combination of high winds, steep waves, and freezing spray could rapidly compromise the ship's buoyancy. Experts believe that a sequence of high waves striking the vessel, coupled with water entering through the hatch covers and possibly weakened structural points, could have caused the Fitzgerald to sink faster than anyone could respond. The fact that nearby vessels survived similar conditions only adds to the mystery, suggesting a perfect storm of unfortunate factors that targeted the Fitzgerald uniquely. The interplay between these three factors, flooding from compromised hatch covers, structural vulnerabilities, and extreme environmental conditions, paints a picture of how a seemingly routine voyage became catastrophic. The ship's rapid disappearance, with no distress signal sent, indicates that the sinking may have occurred within minutes, leaving the crew no time to react. Despite advances in maritime safety, the exact combination of failures that doomed the Fitzgerald remains debated. Investigators could only speculate based on sonar images, recovered artifacts, and historical weather data. The notion that a giant freighter designed to withstand the harshest conditions of the Great Lakes could be claimed by the water so quickly continues to intrigue maritime historians and engineers. Another haunting aspect of the sinking is that while the Fitzgerald succumbed, nearby ships navigating the same storm survived. This stark contrast suggests that small differences, perhaps an angle of approach to the waves, a slightly damaged hatch cover, or minor unseen structural weaknesses may have determined life or death. It demonstrates how, even on well-charted waters, nature and circumstance can combine in unpredictable ways, leaving only mystery in the wake of tragedy. The ship's sinking illustrates how multiple factors can converge in rare, catastrophic moments that defy simple explanation. In the end, the question remains, what truly sank Edmund Fitzgerald? Was it the relentless waves exploiting weaknesses in the ship's design? Did a minor collision with a shoal trigger the disaster, or was it the storm itself, pushing the vessel beyond its limits? While modern research has illuminated many contributing factors, the exact sequence of events during those final hours will likely never be known. The mystery persists, leaving the Fitzgerald not just as a shipwreck, but as a haunting symbol of the unpredictable power of the Great Lakes, a reminder that even the most carefully engineered vessels can be overtaken by circumstances beyond human control. The mystery deepens. The disappearance of Edmund Fitzgerald has remained one of the most enduring maritime mysteries of the 20th century. Unlike many shipwrecks, where survivors can recount the moments leading up to disaster or distress calls and provide a timeline of events, the Fitzgerald offered no such clarity. All 29 crew members were lost, and the ship sank so suddenly that no radio messages signaled trouble. Investigators and historians have had to rely on circumstantial evidence, wreckage analysis, and eyewitness accounts from nearby ships to reconstruct the final hours. This absence of direct testimony has created a void filled by speculation, debate, and fascination, making the Fitzgerald a uniquely enigmatic case. Comparing the Fitzgerald to other maritime disasters highlights why it remains so mysterious. Many ships lost at sea are victims of violent storms, collisions, or known mechanical failures. For example, the SS Eastland capsized in the Chicago River due to stability issues in calm conditions, while the Andrea Doria collided with another ship off Nantucket. The Fitzgerald, however, sank in what was considered a manageable gale by Great Lakes standards, while nearby ships endured the same storm without catastrophic loss. This raises the question: why did this particular vessel succumb when others did not? The contrast emphasizes the unusual nature of the Fitzgerald sinking and has fueled decades of investigation and speculation. Human factors have also been suggested as possible contributors to the disaster. Navigational errors or misjudgments in positioning, especially near shoals or shallow areas, could have compounded the effects of the storm. Some theories propose that the crew may have underestimated the severity of the gale or overestimated the ship's resilience in rough waters. While no evidence points to negligence, the combination of human decision-making under pressure and the unforgiving environment of Lake Superior may have created conditions that proved fatal. Folklore and maritime legend have further amplified the mystery, with stories of ghost waves and the lake's unpredictable temperament adding to the ship's mystique. The cultural impact of Edmund Fitzgerald has been profound, transforming the tragedy into a symbol of the Great Lakes' power and danger. Canadian singer-songwriter Gordon Lightfoot immortalized the ship in his ballad, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, bringing worldwide attention to the event and capturing the haunting nature of its loss. Documentaries and books have explored the sinking, examining every possible explanation and keeping the story alive for new generations. Memorials, including the Whitefish Point Shipwreck Museum, honor the crew and educate visitors about the dangers faced by Great Lakes sailors. These cultural expressions ensure that the memory of Fitzgerald is preserved not just as a historical fact, but as a story that continues to resonate. Even decades later, Edmund Fitzgerald continues to captivate the imagination of historians, sailors, and the general public. The combination of sudden disappearance, total loss of life, and unresolved questions makes it a uniquely compelling story. Each investigation sheds light on some aspects while leaving others shrouded in mystery, reinforcing the sense that Lake Superior still holds secrets that may never be fully revealed. Fitzgerald's tale serves as a reminder of the unpredictable power of nature, the potential consequences of small errors, and the enduring human fascination with the unknown. The mystery of Edmund Fitzgerald is more than a tale of a ship lost at sea. It is a story of courage, resilience, and the thin line between human skill and nature's overwhelming force. As songs are sung, documentaries produced, and memorials visited, the legend of Fitzgerald endures, inviting new generations to ask the same questions that have puzzled historians for nearly half a century. By examining what we know and acknowledging what remains unknown, the story of the Fitzgerald continues to inspire awe, respect, and fascination for one of the most mysterious maritime tragedies in history.